Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to continue our WrestleMania project. We just finished the 25% mark, quarter way done with these WrestleManias, and now just kind of continuing on that pace. WrestleMania 11 here is our next topic of discussion, which took place in in Hartford, Connecticut, on April 2nd, 1995, at the Hartford Civic Center. The announced attendance for this WrestleMania was 16,305. So again, clocking in about the exact same that it has for like the last 5 years now. Um, but yeah, we've been over quite the journey with those first 10 manias, nine being our least favorite, and then 10 was pretty quality. So, do we create a new trend with this WrestleMania 11, or is something else wrong with this one? Let's go ahead and get right into the opening match, and we will find out as we always do, working through each match and rating them and letting you know what we thought of each and every match and overall the entire WrestleMania. The kickoff match for WrestleMania 11 is Lex Luger and the British Bulldog going up against Eli and Jacob Blue with Uncle Zebekiah, I believe was the name. Yeah, I have not seen these guys before, but in a very interesting tag team in that of the British Bulldog, David Boy Smith and Lex Luger. KP, what'd you make of this opening contest for WrestleMania 11?
Yeah, first and foremost, I wasn't familiar with Eli and Jacob Blue either, so this is my first exposure to those two gentlemen. Starting off WrestleMania, obviously you always want something pretty nice to get you, to get you interested, to get you right into the action. And I don't really think this gave the good tempo start that you're looking for in a show. I found that this one was just pretty much a standard tag team match. Nothing special. It was quite short. It wasn't like a long time thing. They weren't given an enormous amount of time, but it seemed to just completely fly by. So and that wasn't a good thing. Like it didn't fly by because it was really good. It just seemed to be quite short, and I think that's the reality of the situation. Allied Powers, British Bulldog, and Lex Luger, they would get the victory in the end here in this matchup. One of the twins, and this is quite interesting. The commentary team, Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler, they have no idea who is who. They don't know which one's Eli. They don't know which one's Jacob. They literally refer to them both as one of the twins or the man in the ring. This like general sort of vague description of one of the twins, and yeah, just summarizing the end of the matchup here. One of the twins goes to lift up Lex Luger, possibly looking for like a powerbomb type move, maybe perhaps. And they're in the corner where the Bulldog is literally just like waiting, and like ready. So yeah, it's like in their corner, ready to go. And as they're doing that, Bulldog goes up onto the top rope and does this like flip over them both, sort of like a sunset flip style maneuver. And then that would transfer into a cover, which would be enough to get the victory for Bulldog and Lex Luger. So yeah, like I said, nothing really groundbreaking to discuss in this one. It was just a pretty quick tag team match, kind of like one you'd probably see on like an episode of Raw or SmackDown, just sort of like mid card of the show type thing. It was just pretty much a filler thing. That's what I took from this one. I gave it a 5 out of 10 just because it wasn't like terrible, but it wasn't great either. It was just like somewhere in the middle. And not the best of starts to WrestleMania, to be honest with you. What did you make of this one, Nick? It's not the best of tag team matches, considering how normally they are pretty decent on WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I can see why, Vince or, whomever talent acquisition at the time would like Eli and Jacob, very impressive stature and you know, uh they're twins, so that's always, something to even, double down on that. So definitely a stature that was long after at the time, Um But yeah, I think Vince at one point was like, yeah, let's call this one Jacob. Because I don't know if I assume that was the gimmick, but yeah, even like me just watching them, I was having a hard time telling who was who. I didn't really see any difference. I'm sure the tattoos were probably a bit different. So it probably was just a gimmick, but yeah, just to naked eye, absolutely difficult to tell. But yeah, Lex Luger going for the WWE Championship the year before. This year, starting off with a tag team championship with British Bulldog. So quite the contrast, and I think that's always fascinating to see kind of where someone ends up year over year. And yeah, I thought they had decent chemistry. I think obviously David Boy Smith carried the match on his end, and Lex Luger, I think he looked better in this dynamic. Of course, it's hard not to look better in a tag team. So, for whatever that's worth, and yeah, British Bulldog ending up getting the win, and yeah, a pretty average tag match. I kind of deemed as well. Tons of pyro after the match, so clearly this was meant to hype the crowd up. But unfortunately, yeah, not much to really get hyped over unless you like pyro, and then which you probably love this. So yeah, I give this one a 5 out of 10. Even that felt a bit generous, but yeah, just kind of there. Nothing crazy. Getting into the next match, we have a Razor Ramon with 123 Kid, better known as X Pac, going up against Jeff Jarrett with the Roadie, better known as the Road Dog. Jeff Jarrett defending his Intercontinental Championship here. Clearly, some bad blood here as Ramon sprints down to the ring just because he wants his hands on Double J that bad. Yeah, KP, what'd you make of this Intercontinental Championship match?
This one had a really weird vibe and flow. So, starting off, it was a pretty rough start. It felt really sort of like spot after spot after spot style wrestling. Like you could tell that like they did one thing and their mind was already sort of like prepped for the next thing, but not in a way that it sort of meshed together and it flowed really nicely. In a way that you could sort of see that they were looking to end their current thing and then immediately move on to what was planned next. So I think maybe the execution was just really poor in that sense with this type of match. But yeah, I really didn't like how the match kicked off. I thought it was a pretty rough start. And you could tell they were just like going through the planned spots, and it just looked a little bit clunky. It had a decent middle section, up until a point where they just seemed to completely lose entirety of all the momentum. That was towards probably the late middle, I would say, and they sort of brought it back to towards the end, but then a poor finish just sort of ruins everything. So Razor Ramon would win this one by disqualification, and basically how that turned out to be would be that Roman, he's got Jarrett set up for like this Razor's Edge, but you got Rodie on the outside who's been a menace, to be fair, for most of the matchup up until this point. And he just gets in the ring and attacks Razor Ramon, taking out the back of his knee, which causes disqualification. So, just a pretty crud DQ finish there. Not exactly anything that you can sort of enjoy or get hyped up about. Following that little interaction, 123 Kid, who's at ringside supporting Razor Ramon here, been involved a couple of occasions here and there. He brings the fight to Roddy and Jarrett, but he gets outnumbered. Then a brawl starts between all four men, and that results in Roddy and Jarrett just leaving the ring and walking off with the title. So yeah, it was I don't know, it was a weird one. This one, like I said, it had a decent amount of time, this matchup, so it's not so bad in that sense. Like, they were able to sort of, like, do something with it. But I think maybe there was a little bit too much time in this one. And it just didn't really do anything for me. Like I said, really clunky, rough start. See, they were just doing what they had to do. And then, yeah, that poor finish was terrible. But the middle was kind of okay. And I guess that's not so bad. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. I don't know. It wasn't really a match for me. I don't really rate it too highly. But what did you think of this one, Nick? Was it slightly better in your estimations, or have I been too generous? Well, yeah, what's your general vibe on this one?
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit all the points that I had. And in terms of liking it better or not, I gave it the same rating you did, which was a 5.5. Clearly, the outside interference kind of really trying to make an impact here. And then, yeah, the second the Roadie realized Double J's title reign was in jeopardy, decided to interfere to keep the belt on him. So, yeah, I kind of basically what you said. I thought the match was finally, doing something, and and just wasn't meant to be because then got that DQ finish. So just a trend that we see back in this time that the champion just had it way too easy, and they obviously can do these things in current day as well, and sometimes they do, but definitely leaned on way too much. Money comes to mind over the last two or three, I think it was, where they just walked out because they didn't want to lose their titles. So an annoying trend, safe to say, around this time period, and really that disappointing and leaving that sour note on what was finally, becoming a somewhat decent match. But yeah, that's yeah, just not a great one, and kind of continuing the trend of what we've seen so far. And continuing that same trend, moving on to the next match, we have The Undertaker with his fourth WrestleMania match with Paul Bearer once again, going up against King Kong Bundy, which I can't remember the last time we've seen him. I didn't know he was still around, with Million Dollar Man Ted DiBiase. Vince already really selling that streak with this one being his fourth match, but probably for the best that we are sidetracked many, many times. The main focus of this match, of course, is that urn and who has it. I think that was by default, and I think that was a good call to try to keep us, our attention elsewhere because the actual match, at least for me, didn't quite do it. How about you, KP? What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, you pretty much glossed over the most important part there. I think talking about the urn specifically, the match was more focused on the whole, past the parcel of the urn, really, wasn't it? It was odd. It had a strange feel to this one. Yeah, I genuinely was more interested and was like, oh, what's the significance with this then? Why are we all passing it around? Why are we trying to get it? Why are we trying to grab it off of him? It means obviously something to the Undertaker and Paul Bearer for sure. I know that, but this is obviously a very large and bigger scale than what we normally see Paul Bearer carrying around. But yeah, in terms of the matchup, it was overshadowed by this this urn, and that's really what this came about to be. In the end, Undertaker gets the win, carries on his streak, as we all know he would do. But yeah, he slams Bundy onto the canvas and then takes him out with a jumping clothesline, and that's enough to get the victory. Sort of like he goes for that cover, which you'd normally see typically after a tombstone pile driver. So he sort of like put his signature little spin on the cover. But yeah, this time after hitting a jumping clothesline. So quite interesting there. I spotted that one. But yeah, like I said, most of the match focusing on the urn. Starts off with Ted DiBiase. Undertaker takes it from him, gives it to Paul Bearer. Ted then signals to the back to bring somebody down. And then we get Kama coming along. He attacks Paul Bearer, takes the urn from him, heads back to like up the ramp and stuff, like quickly, just in and out. And he claims in like this random during the match interview, because we're doing that now, because why not? That he's just gonna melt it into a gold chain to hang around his neck. So yeah, I feel like more attention went into that than the actual match itself. It was a really meh contest. It was really slow paced. It was nothing special, and it's a good thing that we have watched more like modern Undertaker matches at WrestleMania, because if we hadn't, we'd be thinking this guy just delivers stinker after stinker. But to be fair, it's not his fault. You can see that he's put in these matches with guys who aren't on the same level as him. These mid-card big guys that just don't tend to really offer too much. That hasn't been the case for every match, and I am paraphrasing there, but you understand what I'm trying to say. I think at the time, just generally speaking, there isn't really anybody that he's been in the ring with that's been at the same sort of quality as the Undertaker. So yeah, I think it's quite hard to sort of like really get your teeth into one of these matches and enjoy, because they just don't flow very well, and that was the case again here with this one. I gave it a 4 out of 10. I don't think it deserves any higher than that. And like I said, I just cared more about the urn than the match itself, which is not probably the message that they wanted to send.
Yeah, like I said, I think that was by default. I think they probably knew the in match, actual happenings weren't going to be worthy of our attention. And someone to me, or like me, and I'm assuming you as well, seeing that urn getting tossed around and whatnot, that just makes me realize even more so. Well, okay, I'm not mad about it because the actual in-ring action isn't holding my attention. So what's going on over here? So yeah, another stinker, fair to say. And yeah, dead men streak at 4 now without a good match, really. Probably put Jake the Snake Roberts match with him the best, and even that wasn't great. Um, but yeah, I'm ready for his first good match of his streak. I don't know when that's coming, but I know it. We will get it eventually. So yeah, I too. I thought the eye roll afterwards of Taker was pretty cool. I think that's the first time I think I've seen that on Mania. It's possible I've missed it before, but yeah, so that was more entertaining than the actual match itself. I also gave this one a 4 out of 10. Getting into the next match, we have Owen Hart with a surprise tag partner that ends up being Yokozuna, who brings Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette going up against the Smoking Guns, of which Billy Gunn is part of, looking very, very young, and I don't think I've ever seen him in this particular tag team and/or gimmick. But yeah, Owen Hart and Yokozuna, that's a team I never thought I'd see together, and if this seems random to you, that's because it was. Owen had been teaming up with Jim quite a bit, Jim Neidhart, of course, and he got let go in January of this year due to lack of showing up to events he was supposed to. So that's kind of the story I'd always heard because I'd always been curious what happened to Jim Neidhart, and he just didn't really make priority. The wrestling his priority in terms of being showing up and being reliable. So unfortunately, that does appear to be the actual truth of what happened to Jim. But yeah, that's why he's with Yokozuna, and actually had someone else in mind. You probably know him best as the winner of WrestleMania 20's main event. Um, he was kind of in between some things and ended up signing with WCW instead, but almost got that tag team here as well. So interesting bit there, and yeah, Billy Gunn. Smoking Guns, quite the far cry from what we know him as, his current gimmick, or largely throughout his WWE debut or career as well. But yeah, KP, what'd you make of this actual tag match? Yokozuna and Owen Hart, quite the interesting tag match or tag team, no?
Well, first and foremost, had absolutely no idea that Yokozuna and Owen Hart were ever a team, let alone tag team champions. So yeah, very random for sure. Definitely didn't expect this one. I was watching on as he announced his mystery opponent, and I was like, yo, what, really? So yeah, quite a surprise to me. In terms of the match, it was okay. It was a bit boring through the mid stages. I think it petered out into a whole lot of nothingness, and I think that's the average Yokozuna match. Unfortunately, I just can't really seem to enjoy what he sort of offers in the ring. It's very slow, very progressive, and it's not really the kind of thing that I can like properly enjoy. And this was very much more of the same in that respect. But yeah, Owen Hart and Yokozuna defeating the Smoking Guns and winning the WWF Tag Team Championships. It all sort of comes about by Yokozuna. He lays out Billy Gunn with a belly to belly before then hitting a banzai drop. As he goes for a pin, Bart Gunn comes to Billy's aid, but after a tag from Owen and with Bart dealt with, Hart just goes for the cover and yeah, wins the titles. It's a bit of a weird, almost sort of like I don't know. It's almost like they forgot something towards the finish. I'm guessing it was planned to be like it, but it just seemed extremely sort of like, I don't know. The pace just completely slowed down. You'd think after the banzai and everything, Yokozuna would just take out the guys and get the job done. But because of that tag and stuff, quickly just coming on in to win the titles. I don't know. It just felt really weird. It felt really just odd the way it went out like that. But yeah, I don't know. Less about the finish really, and more about just the boring bits in the middle, which just didn't keep me interested at all. Yeah, I don't know. I felt bad because I think Owen Hart started off and he seemed to bring a nice little bit of energy into the matchup along with the Smoking Guns, but yeah, it just fizzled out into a whole lot of nothing really, which is unfortunate. But I guess new tag team champions crown, something to remember this event by. There's not much of those. So yeah, this was a moment, I guess you could say. 5.5 out of 10 I gave it. So yeah, just okay.
Yeah, I thought the Smoking Guns were decent enough, and I thought Owen obviously carried this match for his team. But as you mentioned, yeah, Yokozuna kind of similar to Andre the Giant. Just have a very set style in the ring, and yeah, it's kind of slow paced and not typically what either of us look for in a wrestling match. Can appreciate what they do bring, but in terms of preference, just not really our cup of tea. And Yeah, I noticed, I'm sure you did as well. Yokozuna looked much bigger than last year even, and you could tell he was really struggling to get around there. I don't know if he ends up dropping this weight or not, but he definitely looks much bigger, and his offense even more limited than it already was. And even after they win the match, Yoko's absolutely gassed, and he's like leaning on the ropes, not even celebrating with Owen. He's just kind of sitting there on the ropes, trying to catch his breath. So yeah, I think all things considered, I think it was as good as it could have been. With the Smoking Guns and Owen Hart definitely uh, doing most of the work here. I gave it a 6 out of 10, which you know, I think was just carried by the everyone but Yoko. But yeah, I think they just did the best with what they had here. Moving on to the other Hart, Bret the Hitman Hart, going up against Bob Backlund in an I Quit match, which is we once again see Roddy Piper as a special guest referee. Is basically essentially holding a mic and he's screaming in it every few minutes, which was somewhat comical, but. Yeah, I think it feels like a perfect opportunity for Roddy Piper, being obnoxious and obviously someone who's very, very comfortable on the mic. KP, what'd you think of this match? It was different.
Different, yeah. I think that's fair to say. That that's accurate. Yeah, Roddy Piper loves a special guest referee appearance, doesn't he? There's been a few times now where he's been doing this, and they're always unique matches, I suppose, in certain senses. This one definitely was like that. It wasn't a great match. It had a decent finish, I'll give it that. But in terms of everything that led up to it, it was a bit clunky and a little bit yikes in parts. Bret Hart gets the win eventually in this I Quit contest. Spends a while attempting to lock in a crossface chicken wing submission, not having it fully locked in, Bob Backlund. But then he gets caught by Bret, and he actually locks in his own crossface chicken wing. So basically, just locking the move that Bob spent so long trying to actually get in properly, and Bret Hart just racks it in himself. Yeah, he wraps his legs around Bob. There, gets him down onto the canvas, and Bob Backlund essentially just gives up, and Roddy Piper officially just declares Bret Hart as the winner. So, leading up to that moment, it was very much a slow paced match. It had some nice wrestling, I guess, in little bits, but I think these guys can deliver a lot more than what they offered here in this one. I think it might have been a little bit of a letdown compared to what I think I would have expected going into it. It wasn't, it wasn't like an all timer. It wasn't like completely terrible, but I just think maybe because of the fact that you got Roddy obviously constantly asking Bob if he quits or whatever, if he's okay. Asking Bret as well a few times, not quite as much as Bob Backlund, but it did happen on the odd occasion. I just think, yeah, that offers a very sort of like stop-start style matchup, and it didn't really flow as well as I think maybe it could have done. So yeah, I for me personally wasn't a massive fan of this one. I gave it a 5.5 out of 10. Seems to be a lot of the matches being around the 5.5s at the moment for me here, and yeah, it's just another standard matchup really. So yeah, I don't know. It wasn't anything special. Let's put it that way. It was decent at best.
Yeah, I really can't disagree with you there. I found myself being more entertained by Roddy Piper than I was the actual match. Obviously, we know Bret is capable of much better, and he goes on record to say this was his worst WrestleMania match. So it wasn't just us that just didn't really enjoy this one. So yeah, I don't think there's much else to add to that one that you hadn't already hit. So I gave this one a 5 out of 10 as well. Um, yeah, not either man's best. I think that's fair to say. So let's move on to, I think we could all agree what should have been the main event, but it was not. It was the match before. And this featured Diesel, Big Daddy Cool Diesel, defending his WWE Championship against Shawn Michaels. And yeah, this was a nice contrast of styles. As the big guy, little guy we've seen so often. But for some reason, this was not the main event. So one of the other things we've seen throughout the night, and apparently this was due to lack of star power, which based on how short this card is and all of that, we had Jennifer McCarthy and Pamela Anderson who had evaded Shawn Michaels, and they were just the entire night looking for her. Kind of similar to what they did to Vanna White back in one of the early Manias. I think it was like one or two, three, somewhere around there. Similar story there, but apparently that was a draw because the WWE at the time just not doing well at all. Um, and I think that's further kind of solidified. Nick Turturro running around on commentary all night from I think it was NYPD Blue. I think it was the show he was in. But yeah, this that was definitely a highlight of the night. But as for the actual match, KP, what'd you think? What'd you think of this one? Was this one of HBK's better matches? And what'd you think as Diesel as champion? I think Vince had a lot of faith that he could kind of carry the division, but didn't go so well.
No, it didn't go so well. First and foremost, this, yeah, it should have been the main event, not because it was, you know, an incredible match, but because it was the best of a bad bunch, and that is the absolute perfect way to describe this WrestleMania, in my opinion. This is technically my match of the night, but it's just because it has a slightly higher rating than everything else. It wasn't Shawn Michaels' best WrestleMania match. I don't know if that's because of Diesel. I don't know if that's just because of the current state of WWF at the time. I don't know if it's just because every match up until this point and then the following one was just bang average at best. I don't know. But, you know, it's hard to really be interested in a show that doesn't really offer anything substantial throughout it. And this matchup itself was far too long. Let's just put that out there quickly. Oh my god, this dragged and dragged and dragged. I don't know how long it was, but it felt like an eternity watching it. And normally, Shawn Michaels, whack him in a match, you know, of decent length, I'm probably going to have a really good time watching it. Unfortunately, in this one, I just did not at all. It was so tough to watch. It was incredibly slow. It was so dull and boring for so long. There was a lot of interference. Psycho Sid was, you know, on the outside supporting Michaels, and, you know, that was playing into effect as well. That offered a slight little bit of a distraction, I guess, from the just dullness of the in-ring action. I don't know. It did nothing for me at all. The only slight thing I can sort of pick out from this is that it was for the WWF Championship, which obviously, you know, big title match, makes sense. But it also had a good finish, and I liked the way they did it. So Shawn Michaels, you know, he would lose this matchup. Diesel would retain his WWF Championship, and he would hit a jackknife powerbomb to get the victory. After, like, immediately after having slingshot Michaels into the turnbuckles, it was a really nice way of doing it. It just sort of like petered down Michaels. It got into a position where he was completely done for. And after that jackknife powerbomb, you know, that was good night and it was over. So it was a dominant sort of way to win in the end from Diesel, just completely laying waste to his opponent. I liked that. It showed dominance and it was good. But yeah, it's a shame that everything up until that point was it was, you know, enough to put you to sleep. So yeah, unfortunately, not very good. This to say that this should have been the main event as well is actually insane, based on the rest of the card. But yeah, I gave it a 6 out of 10. That's my match of the night. It shows you the quality of this WrestleMania, generally speaking. More into that when we go into the outros later. But yeah, this wasn't it. This was not fun to watch at all. Wow, this was way too long as well. I'll say that again.
Yeah, I think they were just trying to tell a story, and I think you know, stories can be told quicker, obviously. But yeah, I think Shawn was doing his best to kind of get Diesel over. I think from the reports I've seen, even Diesel knew that this gimmick wasn't working, and you know, based on his stature, you know, um, there was no reason why he shouldn't have been over. I think the gimmick was just a little bit too basic, and comparatively speaking to the face champions we've had before this, and the likes of, you know, Bret, um, you know, Hogan. They were trying to get Lex there for a bit, you know, Ultimate Warrior. Definitely a very, very different dynamic from those guys who, you know, you could tell were over. You know, Diesel was somewhat over, but just comparatively speaking, I think HBK was probably more over than he was at the time. So with that, yeah, I liked the match. I think a little better than you did. But just based on the rating, I gave it a 7 out of 10. But it is crazy that that is the best match of the night. But why would the title match not be the main event? So you're thinking, oh well, they probably have a really good main event. Um, let's go ahead and get on to that one. This main event features Lawrence Taylor from the NFL. I don't know if he was retired this time or not. It really doesn't matter though. He brings a slew of NFL talent with him as well, and he is going up against Bam Bam Bigelow, which no offense to Bam Bam Bigelow, um, but I don't when I see him I don't think put that guy in the main event. He has something special. He's unique enough, and I think his head tattoos and his attire is somewhat interesting. I think he's referred to as the Beast from the East. Um, anyways, he comes down with $1 million corporation, and apparently Bam Bam got a $250,000 payday for putting Lawrence Taylor over. But you have Bam Bam Bigelow as someone who has been here a bit, but I don't think I've seen a standout match from him. And he's then tasked to put over someone who's never stepped in the ring, and that of Lawrence Taylor. We've obviously seen this WWE NFL kind of a partnership, almost, if you will. I believe it was WrestleMania 2, where we saw a battle royal between the NFL and WWE. And so I think this was kind of Vince trying to capitalize on that again, especially with the lack of star power on this WrestleMania. Um, but this wasn't near as entertaining. And I think even I said I would love to see that in current day WWE NFL stuff. They do all the stuff with the NIL stuff with athletes around the world, and I think this would be a great thing to do in today's market. But this wasn't it. Just having those guys stand around the ring, trying to sell us a quick match, wasn't terrible, but definitely shouldn't have been the main event. This should have been Diesel, Shawn, easy. Even if it wasn't the most entertaining, it was more entertaining than this one. But yeah, Keepy, what do you think of this one? I know this isn't going to hit with you even more so because you're not an NFL guy, and even I, being an NFL guy, know some of these guys here, but it didn't make it that match more entertaining for me whatsoever. So I'm assuming it's kind of the same for you.
Yes, 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 yes. I agree with everything you just said. You summarized it really, really well. I don't have an awful lot to add on in terms of just my general feelings towards it. You've pretty much just nailed it on the head. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, why was this the main event? Like, is it literally just because they wanted people to tune in for the entirety of WrestleMania? And they wanted people to tune in for this particular contest. I don't know. It doesn't sound particularly enthralling to me. Yeah, I'm not an NFL guy. Yeah, I don't know any of these guys in the ring except for Bam Bam and the $1 Million Incorporation. I don't know. It for me personally, this one was like I was watching something that I got no knowledge about except for like a Bam Bam. That's basically it. I like Bam Bam. I think he's decent. He's unique, like you said, unique enough. He's got a bit of agility as well as being a big guy. I think that's a nice combination. But I mean, if you're offered $250,000 to to put someone over, you're probably gonna say yeah, right? I think it's safe to say that I think we'd all probably agree to that. And I don't blame him for doing so. Get that bag, I guess. But yeah, the match was extremely boring. It was extremely slow. I described it as literally in my notes. And I don't know how on earth this was a main event of WrestleMania. This has got to be the weirdest WrestleMania main event I've probably ever known of. We still got a fair few manias to go. I know that, but I'm pretty certain this is up there with the weirdest ones, right? Yeah. In the end, Bam Bam Bigelow loses this matchup. Like I said, Lawrence hits a couple of jumping forearms before hitting a diving forearm, and that would be enough to get the victory over Bam Bam. It was something, that's for sure. It's memorable for being, just I guess terrible. So I guess there's that. But yeah, it did nothing for me. Like I don't know how to really go about it. It wasn't the worst match I've ever seen. Like, don't get me wrong, I've seen worse, which is crazy to think because there's a guy who's, like you said, first time ever in the ring. I've seen worse matches, so that does say something. I gave it a 4 out of 10. It's just, yeah, a lot of questions. A lot of questions. You gotta feel bad for Shawn Michaels and Diesel. Yeah, they didn't have a great match like you said, but it was better than this one for sure. So what a crazy decision this really was.
Yeah, and that's what kind of when I'm walking away as, what was Vince thinking to put this match over the last one? Um, did Vince get a big payday from this as well? He passed some of that on to Bam Bam. That's legitimately the only reason I could think as to why this would main event. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's which is another talking point. You kind of hit on it a bit there. Was the weirdest main event for sure, but was it the worst? I don't think so. And I think that's kind of a bit to kind of a feather to put on Bam Bam's cap is he was able to make Lawrence look good enough to where we weren't like thinking, oh, this is a terrible match. Obviously, it didn't do anything, super groundbreaking, but it wasn't terrible either. So I think that's just kind of a bit of a nod to Bam Bam to be able to pull this off. So yeah, definitely won't go down my favorite main event, but I don't think it's the worst. Gave this one a 4.5 out of 10. A bit of an anticlimactic finish to WrestleMania 11, which in the grand scheme of things was pretty anticlimactic, and I'm not sure really had much going for it. But yeah, WrestleMania 11. Um, 9, 10, and 11 have been a journey for sure. Uh, this card, WrestleMania 11, was the smallest card so far through the first 11. I think two shorter than what was the shortest one before, and I believe that was last year, the year before, which had 9 matches. This one only had 7. So aside from the Diesel, Shawn Michaels, KP, any of these matches you're ever going to come back to and give us your overall thoughts and, of course, your overall rating, and we will wrap this one up.
I think it's safe to say that I will never be watching any of these matches ever again unless I am literally forced to by whatever means necessary. Like I think when you think of a WrestleMania, you want star power, you want quality, you want memorable moments, and you want something that you can always, comfortably go back and watch. This had absolutely nothing of any of those. The only take that I think you can say from this is that we had new tag team champions crowned, and that is clutching at the barrel because did Owen, Hart, and Yokozuna last long as a team? I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe it somehow just has gone under my radar, and I've never heard of this team because I don't know. No one talks about it for whatever reason. But for what reason that is, I don't think it went too long. So yeah, new tag team champions crowned. Besides that, I don't think anything of note happened here. Not in my opinion. Bam Bam got a big paycheck. All right, fair play. Get that money, I suppose. And yeah, everything else was just bang average. What on earth? I gave it a 5 out of 10. That's an average of all my matches, match ratings put together as an overall. So yeah, it's down there with like the worst ones that we've seen so far. I wouldn't say this is WrestleMania 9 bad, but it's close. I think that just the general quality of those matches were worse than the general quality of these ones. But yeah, this wasn't a good WrestleMania. This was a bad WrestleMania. Probably one of the worst ones, I would say, comfortably. Yeah, just so unforgettable. Just so forgettable, basically, and just not memorable in the slightest. So yeah, take what it is, I suppose, and it can't get worse than this going into 12, right?
Yeah, let's hope so. And yeah, I would agree with you. I think this is a better card than 9, but a very safe card. At least 9 tried to do things that didn't work, but they tried to do things. And this has kind of been the formula over the last few manias. It definitely there was a time where it was quantity over quality. I think they've tried to change that. They tried to go to quality over quantity, but when you don't get that quality and you have such little quantity, I think it highlights the lack of happenings at this WrestleMania. And I think that's the biggest issue is you only had 7 matches. So even that's pretty, very we have PLEs today, just, standard PLEs that are almost bigger than that. And those are often pretty short, so pretty small. So yeah, it's you could definitely feel the issues within WWE, grasping at straws for things to happen. And like I said, Pamela Anderson running around was one of the biggest stories of the night. So what does that say for you? Yeah, I like the Diesel Shawn Michaels match. I thought it was good. Um, Not great, but good. And aside from that, though, there isn't another match here that I will be coming back to watch. So unfortunately, this WrestleMania 11, my overall rating was a 5. So yeah, just kind of there. Um, and unfortunately didn't bring anything new to the table. Sorry, it was a 5.5 was my overall rating, but still, yeah, not great. And we'll swiftly move on to WrestleMania 12. But for now, this has been the WrestleMania 11 review, and this has been the latest WrestleMania review episode of our WrestleMania series. Um, yeah, let us know in the comments below. Did you like this WrestleMania 11? And if not, let us know what was your favorite match of the night. Do you have any idea why Bam Bam was main eventing over Shawn and Diesel? Anything like that, or you just want to comment anything below, let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Very much appreciate that. It helps us move our channel forward. We've been very busy with the push lately, trying to get out a bunch of content, and we've been enjoying it for the most part. Not so much this WrestleMania, but we've been enjoying getting to do this with each other and continuing to put out that content in addition to what we put out on a weekly basis of the recaps and reactions of the weekly shows and PLEs. But for now, this has been the latest episode of The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.